Yes, we're going to get started. My name is Osborne Strickland, and I am the broker for City of Lakes Community Realty. I hope you don't mind, I pace a lot. But that's just kind of the way I'm thinking. So I'm going to set up this presentation by basically saying, most of the time I start directly from PowerPoint presentation, because that's my crutch. You know, if I get nervous, I can always switch to the PowerPoint. But I'm not going to do that with this, okay? I'm going to speak kind of off the cuff, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing it. The topic, today's topic really is, this session will provide examples of marketing best strategies, developing sales processes, and how best to get to closing. And I'm thinking, when Jeff made that assignment to me, I'm thinking, what are you doing to me, Jeff? You know, this is not a 101 real estate, course. What can I provide, people that they don't already know something about? In addition, we've got a couple of properties that have been on the market for a while, and I'm thinking, what is it that I can share to this group, to give them ideas of how to sell their difficult properties when I can't sell our difficult properties, What is it that I'm going to be able to share with you? What kind of pearls of wisdom am I going to be able to give to you? So, of course, realizing that, I was in a panic. I mean, what is it that I'm going to tell these people? So I called Jim up. I said, Jim, you're going to help me out here. What is this presentation going to be about? Okay, and then Jim says, well, what they're going to really be interested in are the models. Okay, what model does City of Lakes Community Realty and City of Lakes Community Land Trust use? Okay, one group has their own model, so there's a different model. So you all are interested in those models. So I said, okay, great. That's the solution. So I'm going to tell you about the model that City of Lakes Community Realty uses. But wait a minute, the story is not over. I got back to the office and I was getting ready to, write out my presentation, and I said to myself, well, wait a minute, what does this have to do with best practices for selling properties? So I'm back in the conundrum again. Jim told me the answer, okay, but I wasn't astute enough to get it, What the models, the question that the models raise have to do with, and I'm going to give you the answer right now, intention, okay? So to better understand that, let me kind of back up a little bit, and I'm going to kind of explain to you what realtors do, okay? How we think, how the profession thinks, okay? Real estate people are in the business of selling property, all right? Helping their clients sell their homes, sell their businesses, whatever. And the way that real estate salespeople and brokers do, the way that they do this is they focus on listings, okay? So if I'm a realtor, if I want to build a big real estate business, I focus on getting as many listings as I can, because listings bring in the buyers. Okay? So brokerages like that. Real estate salespeople like that. That's how they make their money. Okay? But you say that's beneficial to land trust, community land trust. So that's beneficial for them. Well, it is. And it isn't, okay? Because herein lies the conundrum, all right? Realtors, their focus happens to be themselves, all right? Their focus is on raising revenue, profits. So it's all about sales, okay? Now that helps you a little bit, but really when it gets to the hard sales, it doesn't help you at all, okay? Because there's so much time wasted, there's so much inefficiency, and whatever tools realtors use to sell these houses are frequently, in the case of community land trust properties, are off the mark. Okay? So, what do the models try to do differently than just what ordinary realtors and real estate brokers? Okay? The word is intentional. What these models are about is taking the focus off the real estate firm or off individual realtors and putting them at the behest of the community land trust. So the focus is not so much revenue, it's not so much business. The focus is on the community land trust. So what does that mean? What are the implications? That means that instead of focusing on really objective tools, okay, tools that you put out, that realtors use to sell properties to the masses, all right, realtors need to focus their attention on the needs of the community land trust. That means that realtors need to have a better understanding of what? The client, the needs of the client, and also the needs of the organization. Okay? So that's really what these models that we have are all about. Now, Jim knew that. He thought I knew that, but I didn't know that. I had to kind of discover that on my own. So, okay. So I'm first up. I'm going to share the model with you that City of Lakes Community Land Trust uses, okay, for their real estate function. So I'm going to skip through all these slides because they're not of any use. Okay? So, City of Lakes Community Land Trust model. The City of Lakes Community Realty is a separate nonprofit LLC. Okay? It is wholly owned by the City of Lakes Community Land Trust. So in other words, it is a corporate subsidiary of that organization, all right? The land trust owns its own separate real estate company. I am the broker for that real estate company, and I am the only real estate person now part of that, part of the real estate brokerage. Now, because it's a separate corporation, there is a separate board of directors, okay? I'm on the board of directors. I'm on the board, all right? So is Jeff. So is Stacy. Jeff, you all know, Executive Director of City of Lakes Community Land Trust. Stacy, Operations Director. Molly Mossman, that's our finance individual. She's on the board. And then I'm also on the board as the what? The president and the broker, okay? Now, some of you might be asking, well, why isn't Jeff the president of this corporation? Jeff can't be the president of this corporation because it's a real estate company. Some of you probably already know that. Realtor, when you have a real estate company, a realtor has to be the head of it or the lead of it, so to speak, okay? Because there are all these regulations with respect to Department of Commerce regulations. Now, the way that we are set up is I am not an employee of City of Lakes Community Land Trust. Neither am I an employee of City of Lakes Community Realty. I am an independent contractor, okay? So whatever, I get my income from whatever deals I make, okay? So I have a contractual relationship with the land trust with respect to, you know, selling of properties and that sort of thing. And I'll get to that. Realtor commission fee split. So you probably want to know, how am I paid? Okay. So I'm an independent contractor. City of Lakes Community Land Trust has properties that they develop, okay? I, as the broker and salesperson for City of Lakes Community Realty, my company are City of Lakes Community would list those properties. Okay, so I list all of the properties of the City of Lakes Community Land Trust. Okay, and if we sell a property, there's a 50-50 split. Okay, the land trust gets 50% of the commission, I get 50% of the commission. Okay, so that's, we call those CLT direct sales. What happens if somebody in the land trust, a land trust owner wants to resell one of their properties? If I happen to be the realtor representing them, okay, and that property is sold to someone else, I am commissioned, okay, so I get 50% of the commission. Land trust gets, or the realty company gets 50% of that commission, plus an admin fee. We charge $400 admin fee, and that stays with the organization. Now, what happens if I get a client? By the way, one of the things that I am allowed to do is to function as a normal realtor. So I can go out and get my own clients, okay? And I do from time to time. I have clients that are non-land trust clients. They're not interested in the land trust, okay? They are, you know, normal, traditional buyers. I have the ability to represent them. So the commission that's paid on that is I get 90% of that, okay? The administrative fee that we charge, that stays with the real estate company. What else? I also do some other things for the land trust. I will do CMAs, or comparative market analysis. If the land trust wants to purchase a property from, say, a state organization or an agency, I'm the one that develops the PA for that. And there's no charge. I mean, it's fairly simple to do. It's fairly easy to do. So there's no charge associated with that. If the land trust is buying a property from, say, an individual, a citizen, so to speak, then I do get involved in that, and I do all the purchase contracts. There is a small fee for that when the property is sold, okay? So again, that's kind of a gratis thing, but really it isn't. When the property is purchased from a citizen, so to speak, and then resold by the land trust, I inflate my commission to, you know, to allow for any work that was done in acquiring that property. Okay? What else? Sometimes there are deals between these. This doesn't happen very much. It's very infrequent. But sometimes, let's say a land trust owner wants to resell their property, and there's a buyer. There's a known buyer. Okay, so there's no you know, we're not doing any advertising. We're not listing on the MLS. We're not doing any of that sort of stuff. All right? I can charge a facilitation fee for that. A couple of $1,000, and we split it. Split it with the real estate company. Okay? The real estate company has been around, I think it was organized somewhere around in 2016, and it went live, so to speak, in 2017. So we've been in business since 2017. And I think originally the goal was not necessarily to have the real estate company be its own entity and, you know, as a result of that, you know, compete with other brokerages in terms of, you know, getting as many sales as we possibly could. That wasn't the original goal, okay? I mean, that's not the goal. The goal, and I want to get back to this concept of intentionality, okay? Intentionality, okay? The goal, in addition to, you know, maximizing, you know, or gaining revenue, so to speak, from land trust properties, it was to involve the real estate function, bring it in closer to the mission and the role of the land trust, okay? So as a realtor, all right, it helps, the real estate company helps the land trust because I, as an agent, when I'm going out to help, okay, sell their homes, and this is where this is where maximizing sales, and I'm talking about difficult sales, when the land trust can't sell a property, or the property is just not selling it as quickly. This is where the intentionality comes in. All right, I'm familiar with the land trust. I'm familiar with the client base of the land trust. I'm familiar with the programs of the land trust. I know all of these kinds of things that maybe other traditional realtors may not know, so it helps me focus in on buyers that are eligible to purchase homes from the land trust. So instead of using a shotgun approach, okay, to bringing in as many buyers as I possibly can, my focus is on land trust buyers and the needs of land trust buyers and the needs of the community land trust, okay? If there are problem buyers, and I think all of your organizations, you do this, okay? You are really interested in helping people buy homes. You see people in all kinds of situations, that are so different from the traditional system, and you want to help these people out of these situations, okay? What I do with the land trust as a realtor, I sit down with them, they sit down with me, and we discuss how we can make this happen for people. I'll give you an example. You all probably have a whole lot of examples, but I have a client right now who is qualified for a land trust property. She is a single parent, single female, with 2 children. Okay, one's I believe a boy, and one is a trans child. Okay, she needs 3 bedrooms. She has a sister who has a kid. The sister needs 2 bedrooms. Okay, so their desire is to buy a duplex. They don't have a lot of money. Okay, so they're getting a lot of support from the land trust through the land trust HIP program. They're getting a big pile of money, $100,000, plus any additional down payment assistance programs. And I think they're qualifying somewhere around $325,000. Okay, now we're working with a kind of a new lender. There was a mistake done, okay, because the lender did something that you do traditionally with people who buy duplexes, imputed some of the income from the apartment. Okay, by the way, my client, one single female, it's a family, but the other people in the family can't qualify. They have bad credit, they don't have, so I've got this one individual who's trying to take care of both of these families. By the way, this person has another sister that lives in Arizona, and the plan is to have that sister. So you can see what kind of home this client needs. So part of the land trust rules with respect to duplexes is that you can't impute the income from the tenant, because we don't want to put the homeowner in a situation where they can't get a tenant, you know what I'm saying? And as a result of that, they lose the house because they can't make the mortgage, okay? So if we can't impute the income, guess what? No longer $325, we're down to $230 now, okay? All right, that is really difficult. We're talking about putting, what is it, 5, 6, 7 people in a house, and they only have purchasing power of about $230,000. That's really difficult. Okay, so what I do, Stacy and I, we put our heads together. We're going to say, okay, fine. What are our options? You know what I'm saying? What are our options? Do we have any resales coming up? Do we have, associations with other organizations, other nonprofit organizations that are in the housing business? Is there anything there? You know what I'm saying? Are we going to get any donated properties soon, whereby we might be able to refurbish some of those, do whatever it needs to be, do whatever it needs to be, so that we can, place this family in this home. So you get the idea, the intentionality. That's the bridge between what I think real estate people normally do, okay, and the needs of the community land trust, all right? So that's the model that we use. That's how the City of Lakes Community Land Trust is intentional about being able to meet the needs of its clients and also the needs of the land trust, all right?
Any questions for Osborne? And
about the model?
Yeah, or anything you just covered? Any clarifications? All right. So apologies if some of this will be repetitive if you were in the working with lenders and realtors session, but I kind of have to at least touch on some of the same topics. We have our model is similar but not exactly the same. One Roof, which at the time was Northern Community Land Trust, we began to build some of our own new construction homes. We wanted to be able to put them on the MLS to reach a broader buying audience, and we learned that in Minnesota we could be what's called a limited broker. So if you owned the property yourself as a company, you could put it on the MLS. And that worked successfully, and so that was our first dipping our toe in the water of the MLS and the realty world and listing properties and just making those first few connections with realtors. But of course, these were always just vacant homes, new construction that we had built, and pretty clear distinction of the roles. So we were the listing agent as a limited broker. Then, as time went on, we began to have resales of homes that we previously developed. These were now occupied homes owned by individuals that One Roof did not own anymore, and so as a limited broker, we couldn't list them. So, but we learned that if you were a limited broker for like 2 years and you had sold 20 or 25 properties at a time, you could become a full broker without having to go through all of the salesperson classes that you would normally have to go through if you wanted to, follow the steps to become a real estate broker, right? Normally you're a real estate agent first, you take the class, you have to work under a broker for a couple of years, you have to do a certain number of things, right? Work your way up. So we were able to skip that step. I think the Department of Commerce thinking, well, you've been a limited broker, so you've functionally done all the real estate agent type work, so we're gonna let you bypass that step. So this is like, 15, 18 years ago or something, I came down and did a week-long broker's class. Totally felt like a fish out of water. I was like, I just work for a nonprofit, I just got into this just to help people, and I'm sitting in a broker's class to be a real estate broker. This is not what I was expecting out of the job. But I did recognize that this worked to further the mission of One Roof, to further the mission of what we wanted to try to achieve. So we always try to look at everything from a mission lens, rather than, is there money to do that? Well, then let's do that. Well, maybe not if it's taking us off our mission, or it's going to have an adverse effect in some other part of our organization. But this seemed to align pretty well because we knew we're always going to be selling homes. It's not like there's a point at which where we won't need to do that anymore. Like, nope, that's pretty core to a home ownership organization is having to sell homes. So getting the expertise in it and becoming a full broker made sense, even though I really went in with a lot of trepidation because very intimidated by people whose careers were to be realtors and brokers, and you think of this big money and big deals and terminology and kind of confrontational and I was like, I'll do it if I have to, So went through the class and then became a full broker. where we're slightly different is, it's the same in that it's an LLC of One Roof Community Housing, so again, wholly owned subsidiary, One Roof Community Realty. But our board of directors for One Roof Community Housing is the same, and so at our board meetings, it will say, board meeting of One Roof Community Housing, One Roof Community Realty, and some other LLCs that we have done. So there's not a separate board that meets or a separate group. We try to keep it simple. The other thing that's different is I am an employee of One Roof Community Housing, and so when we sell a home, I don't get a stinking dime out of the commission, all right? Man, not fair. So I'm a salaried employee, and so that, which certainly frames my identity. So on the one hand, there's not this pressure. Like I would hate to be a traditional realtor where I had to make my living on commissions and sales and just that stress. Some people love that. Some people are excellent at that and clearly very successful at that, right? So, but I wouldn't want to have to always be worried about a sale in order to get paid. So I joke with Jeff, like, I make the same salary whether I sell any homes or not, and of course, there's the point at which if I don't sell homes, I won't be an employee anymore, and so there goes my salary. But so we started, and then we had this brokerage, and it was just me. And then recognized as we grew that it would be, so I did everything. I did all of the listing agreements and purchase agreements and buyer agency agreements, seller representation contracts, closings, the whole bit. But then as we grew, we need more help here as our portfolio grows, because even if we're developing the same number of units each year, let's say we're developing 15 new units a year, either between new construction or acquisition, rehab, resale. The longer we're around and as our portfolio grows each year, the number of resales increases every year, right? It just kind of stands to reason that when you have 10 homes, you're not going to have as many resales as when you have 350 homes. So even if the same percentage of your portfolio turns over with resales, which is what we've seen, kind of like 6 to 8% or something. 6 to 8% of 350 is a lot more than 6% of one. So realizing that, okay, we need more help. And so then we had some of our other employees of One Roof get their realtor's license. So then they took that first step of starting at the bottom rung of taking the real estate salesperson classes and the tests, and then under the One Roof community brokerage license. We chose to keep it all in-house, both to capture the revenues, which again over time are substantial now. We have over $100,000 in real estate commission revenue every year, 150 sometimes, just from the sales of land trust, newly developed homes and resales. So we wanted to keep it all in the house financially. Was beneficial, but also we felt like if we were going to contract with outside realtors, we couldn't count on the mission being sure and solid, right? Not anybody disparaging me personally, but you can't be as committed to something if it's sort of, I'm doing this among all my other stuff, if you're pulled in a million different directions. And so we thought, well, we know the One Roof model better, the land trust model, so we're going to keep the realty within our staff. So now, Joanna, who you probably met, she's a realtor, an employee of One Roof. She came on as an employee, and then of course we pay to get her license. We have another employee who we also recognize in our acquisition rehab resale program. We need to buy houses, acquire them, and in order to buy them off the market, well, you need to be a realtor, right? So then we have one of our housing development staff who's a realtor, and then go out and look at houses and as well. So we're both in the acquiring homes, but then also in the selling homes. So so that's how we've handled that structure of the realty component. And we are the listing agent for all of the newly developed one-work properties, the land trust properties. So whether it's acquisition, rehab, resale, new construction. And then on resales of existing homes, as I mentioned if you were here yesterday, but we 99% of the time we are representing the land trust seller as well. It's not required because any licensed real estate agent can do that work. But our explanation is nobody knows the land trust model better. Nobody has the same skills and experience that we have in selling land trust properties. And that's just totally true. There's nothing. And so what I evolved in over the last 15, 18 years was thinking that I was taking something away from other realtors, like by coming in, and they were all going to be mad at me for taking their business away, to realizing that I'm helping them serve more of their clients, right? Because they would have clients that qualify for the land trust program income-wise, be looking at things on the market, not find anything that, oh, wow, there's this house that is great condition, right in your price range. This wouldn't have been available but for the land trust developing it. And so now, we have lots of realtors who will contact us proactively to say, what do you have coming up? I got a client who's in this income range. This is, and they keep coming back to us. They've helped multiple of their clients over the years buy land trust homes. We have plenty of realtors I've never worked with, right? They serve either a different income population or, and that we just don't cross paths, right? But there's always a certain percentage of realtors who I see regularly, working with clients, and we have a very good working relationship. But part of it was that change in my mindset of it being a partnership rather than a competition. And even when there's an external realtor representing a land trust buyer purchasing a land trust home, it's still a partnership, right? Because that's where the non-traditional part comes in. Because normally you wouldn't have, in a traditional real estate example, right? If you have an agent representing the seller and an agent representing the buyer, they're just looking out for their client's interest. That's their job, right? That's the whole point. And here, OneRoof as the listing agent is also looking out for the interest of the buyer, right? Which is unusual and different, and realtors see that and recognize, like, oh, this is actually kind of a nice change of pace where we're just trying to get this person to closing. So even though in those cases where we're not representing the buyer, I'm working as hard for that buyer as I would for one I am representing. And you just have to accept, and that buyer's agent commission is going to go to this realtor. And sometimes that's a little frustrating when some realtors are like, oh, it's a land trust, why not do anything, basically, except show up at the closing and collect my commission. But that's really not the norm, right? So most of them are those realtors are very conscientious, excited to help their buyers, are, doing everything they normally would in the process, but in a very collaborative way. And then that's been great. So then the buyer essentially has multiple people on their side helping them get to closing. And so, and we represent, it varies year to year, but somewhere between 25 and 50% of the land trust buyers, right? And partly that's just staff capacity, right? Joanna and I, we don't have the time to represent a ton of people just with our small capacity. But part of it's practical is because we want people to choose the land trust house because it's the right house for them and it's the right program for them, and not because they didn't know about other options, right? So we'd say, look at on the open market, see what you can find. If you find something that's in your price range that works for you, it's not a land trust home, great, we're awesome, that's happy for you. But we decided early on that we weren't going to show clients non-land trust properties. We can. I'm a licensed real estate broker. I can show anybody anything. I can sell anything in Minnesota. That's in Iowa. But we realized if we start getting into showing clients we're working with tons of other houses that aren't land trust program, like we could be doing nothing but that, right? And we'd be out of our core mission. So we said, if you want to look at multiple properties outside of the land trust, then you should definitely get another realtor who can show you those and the land trust properties, right? And so many of our buyers do that, and some say, no, I'm 100%, I know this is I want to work with you guys, I want to purchase the land trust, so then we sign a buyer's agency agreement with that buyer, and we just show them the land trust homes, right? So the other thing that's come up with some degree of regularity is, well, what people who say, we support the work that you do in the community one roof, we think it's great. I have a home for sale, love it if you guys would represent me in the sale, and then I'll feel good about the commission I'm paying on my house going to one, right? And, that's a viable path, and it's something we keep thinking, should we do that? And so that's an option people can think about. We've chosen not to do that for a couple of reasons. One is it's not our skill set, like to list just a market rate home. Is not what I do. It's not what I'm good at. Like I have to kind of get into a whole different mindset. Like that's what I'm saying. Of like, okay, now who am I representing? Just representing one individual and trying to get the maximum amount of money for them, basically, and would have to kind of approach it differently. It would also take time, right? So now you're representing somebody on their $300,000 house. And they're happy to have you because they want the commission to go to one roof, but you've got to put a lot of time and effort into this listing that you're not using towards the land trust model. And then the third reason we decided against it was brand confusion. And again, we have the rights to do anything that any broker can do in Minnesota. We've chosen to limit the one roof name to land trust properties. And I think that has helped, it's certainly helped to just keep us on our mission. It's helped keep me sane and have a manageable work life. But also I think it's helped with the relationships with the realtors where we're not seen as like, oh, well now they're doing non-land trust properties, or now they're trying to do everything. And so when they see the listing, Joanna or Jim, one roof community, housing, they think, oh, okay, this is a land trust one. I know what the deal is here and what's going on. If we start to pop up with all these other homes that aren't land trust, it's like, oh, I thought you guys, so what? This one's not restricted or no lease land or what's going on here? And so we have we focus on just that. In terms of the actual practical marketing and sales of the home, that's what I'm checking out time here. It's in a certain way, land trust homes sell themselves, right? Like if you do it right, because they are hopefully high quality homes at a significantly reduced price below market value. And there's an enormous need in almost every community for affordable housing, right? So I don't have any this is an awesome strategy we did, the best strategy is to develop good properties and raise enough money that you can price them as low as reasonably possible, If you do that, you will have no problem selling your homes. There is, but of course, functionally, you have to do some things. So we, again, chose early on to get on the MLS. We did a few initially where we, we're just gonna like word of mouth, posters in the co-op, or, that kind of thing. And I, told the story yesterday, but, our first foray into it, trying earnestly to like keep the prices affordable as possible, was when we advertised them, we said, it's $100,000 if you're buying this home without a realtor, and it's $108,000 if you're buying this home with a realtor. It made a really clear distinction, and then the realtor said, we don't love that way you're marketing it, and you can understand why. So that's when we had to recognize, the cost of realty work is a legitimate and true expense that's necessary as part of developing a home. You wouldn't cut out other, costs that you just have to do. Well, we're just not going to pay for a survey. We're just going to build on this willy-nilly. It's like, no, you got to do that. That's part of the cost. So once we recognized this was a normal and necessary part of a homeownership transaction, we are going to just include those costs in and pay ourselves when we're the listing agent. We'll also pay ourselves when we're the buyer's agent. So we are dual agents, representing both buyer and seller, and then we get all the commission, right? And have no problem with that, because it's a lot of work, because it's two different parties, and we realize, again, sometimes we'll be like, well, we're doing it, so maybe we shouldn't charge anything, and then it's like, no, it's actually a lot of work, and it's professional work, and it takes a lot of skills and competency, and it deserves to be paid for. But once we went to listing homes on the MLS, multiple listing service, then of course every realtor sees that, and that's the easiest way to get the word out. Then all of these folks that are working with clients already, just in the normal way, they set up showings, etc. We also have, I'm sure as you all do, websites, and we have a very robust section of the website for our community land trust program to explain how the program works and all the information about it, and then also all of our current homes for sale on our own website with all of the same details that are on the MLS, all the same photos. It's not just like a one sentence about it, but it's the whole listing that they can see on our own website as well. And so then when somebody applies to the program, we can send them a link to the website that both has just information on how to apply, etc., but also, here's a link to all of our current homes for sale. So you click on that and it all pops up. Yeah.
Jim, is that integrated with the MLS, your website automatically, or do you have to manually populate?
I have to manually populate it. But our volume isn't so high that that's overly burdensome. And I'm not a techie guy, so there's probably like some way it could be. But at this point, we're like, okay, well, we're just going to upload the same photos and the same information, so it's not too bad. And we have, so now on average we have 25 to 30 land trust sales a year between our homes that we developed for the first time and then resales of existing homes. I will say, which probably will come as no surprise, selling resale homes is a little harder than selling the brand new ones, right? Because they're lived in, and people live in their homes differently, and they decorate their homes differently, and they care for their homes differently, and they have greatly varying amounts of stuff in their homes, right, as we all know. So certainly, as I'm sure you would say, is the same as when you have an occupied home that you are then listing as a resale, that requires a little extra sometimes than a brand new home that's you've just developed, never been lived, right? Sometimes it can work in your favor because we've had some just meticulously, awesomely cared for homeowners, you know, with like beautiful furnishings and everything immaculate, and that's just how they live, and people walk in like, wow, you know, and it looks way better than an empty house. And then we have some folks that, like, okay, we gotta get rid of some of this stuff if we're gonna list this home, it's just, you know, too much. And that's just life, right? And so, we've had to, it's often around that, you know, getting rid of some of your stuff. Because these are generally smaller homes as well, and so it doesn't take a lot to fill them up, and they just don't look as attractive. But we structure it the same way so that we don't, you know, we certainly tell people that, you know, this is a home that we previously developed and now it's reselling, you know, that's why somebody's living in it. But our resale formula, our resale process, all of the listings, the MLS, the website, you know, all of it's the same, you know, for either one. Yeah.
Have you had a situation where the issues went beyond just cleaning things up a bit? Where there's something that they actually had to fix?
Yeah.
And with the resale formula being a set price, how do you handle encouraging repair to be?
Yes, that is definitely a big one. And so we've done a couple of things in that regard. And I mentioned this yesterday, but we, particularly for us, because we had different, we brought homes into the land trust program in different ways over different times, over many years. And some of the first ones we brought in was through a buyer-initiated program where we had very little rehab because we were a small startup nonprofit and we had a partnership with the Housing Authority, and so we had, you know, 5,000 in rehab. We're excited about that, and so they had a very light touch done to them. Versus now, I've been doing some scopes, we have 175,000 in rehab. We go in and just do everything in the house, get it ready, and sell it. So you can see quite the range. So on some of the resales where some work needs to be done, if it's some of those real older ones that didn't have much, and really some of the things that need to be done are no fault of the homeowner, then we've either got some additional subsidy to do some work upon the rehab, we've increased the resale price by the cost of a new roof and a furnace, because there's enough room, because it was so affordable 15 years ago when we did it, and so that we added that in. And then when we've done it that way, we've essentially, one fronts the cost of that work, and then the seller reimburses us at closing when the home sells.
So you have them do it before it sells? Are there ever situations when the CLT acquires the home from them to do work?
Yes, and so, and that would be the other option where we say, you know what, the amount of work that needs to be done now, it's gonna be too hard for us to do while you're living in it. and really, what we can do is start all over again with this. Now that we have the capacity and the funding and the skills and the construction company and everything to do it right, we're going to buy that house back that we brought into trust in 1999, and that all we did was put in a furnace or something, you know, and now we're going to just do everything. And actually, I'm not buying one back this week in that very manner. And you know, that's been helped us, and then we treat it as just a new acquisition rehab, just as if we bought it off the market, and then we do the full scope of work, all the lead and asbestos and green communities and the whole bit, and then start all over again. And we can do that now because we have the capacity to do that. But that buyer initiated program was super helpful in our early days when we didn't have the funding, the staff capacity to do the kind of work that we're doing now. And that's, partly, we're always, you guys are all the same. Like you can only tackle what you can tackle now. You do the best you can to prepare for the future, and you hope when something comes up in the future that you're then at a point where you can address it, right? So you don't want to irresponsibly not do things now, clearly, but there's a point at which say, this is as much as we can do now, I wish we could have done more, but this is what we can do, and it's still a good thing, and then we'll keep growing and improving, so.
Is that, sorry, one more
No,
question.
no.
Is that a stewardship conversation? And I guess I'm curious with City of Lakes too. Is that a stewardship conversation or is that a realtor conversation of, in order for me to sell your home, I need you to do this, or do the other staff talk about that?
It's both, and since I'm in both realty and stewardship, I straddle both, and so sometimes it's a Joanna and Jim conversation, because Joanna's in the realty, and we say, this house is pretty good, but it needs this, and we need to sell it to do this, because we don't want to buy every home back, like that's just not a good approach. And because then you can, we definitely don't say this is like, yep, you just live in the house, and then when you're done, we'll buy it back, and don't worry about taking care of it. That's not what we're saying. This is your home, and when you're ready to sell, you need to have it in marketable condition to sell it, right? But when there is a resale that comes up, and we look at it and think, I think this one falls in that category of needs more work than the seller can reasonably do in the time to get it listed, and this would be a good opportunity to reinvest in this home. Then it's a gym and a housing development side that says no common ground construction. Okay, now we're going to go through it and do that. So it's we might buy back. So we did almost 100 homes through this buyer initiated program from 1999 to like 2009. And so, and over those 10 years, we gradually got more and more rehab money. So by the 2009 ones, we had more rehab done than the 1999 ones. So when those early ones come up from the 99 through 2004 or whatever, those are the ones we're typically buying back. And I actually kind of like that, because then it's like, you feel a little bad, like, oh, you got one of those early houses, we couldn't do that much on. On the other hand, you bought it for $50,000. So I don't feel too bad. It was like the price was so low and affordable. And I look at some of those, wow, your mortgage payment was $275 a month. It's like, okay, I guess I don't feel bad anymore after this. You had an awesome, affordable home. So that's how we handle that.
We handle it just a little, we handle it a little bit differently, but it's actually the same. So the conversation would come on the real estate side. So I would have a conversation with the homeowner saying, look, if we're gonna sell your home, it needs to be in good condition. You need to, not necessarily, sometimes it requires a little fixing up, but sometimes it doesn't. It's just a staging kind of thing. You need to move stuff into the garage so that people can actually see your house and they can see themselves in it. But we approach that from the real estate side first. And if it turns out that it is determined that we cannot sell this house on the market and we're going to have extreme difficulty, then the land trust will have the conversation about, well, is this something that we need to do in terms of buyback or what? But we look at it from the real estate side first. It's a real estate problem, okay, until it's no longer a real estate problem. So it's the same, but that's kind of how we handle it.
And is there any sort of standard, sorry that I'm just asking all these questions, but when it is, because I understand the marketability standpoint is what you're starting with, right? And it's not, if we've gone past that point where this isn't just a marketing issue, and presumably they're disagreeing with the standard that they're meeting, is there anything written as far as an obligation, or I hope this is something that comes up so rarely that it's no big deal, but from the legal standpoint, are they arguing with you about what needs to be done, or have you just been fortunate that they agree and you proceed?
Well, so there's not a definitive list of this is the condition your home has to be in. many times we've relied on, because we are, very similar to the traditional homeownership, and 90% of the time, is, well, seller, there's some issues here, and the buyer's gonna have a home inspection, and that home inspector's gonna find these things, identify them, and then the buyer has a right to request them, and, you're gonna have to do some of these things.
So that ends up
yeah.
being the policy though, basically what the home
Yeah,
inspector
yeah.
would find.
And then, of course, the issue is that it becomes, especially in the very delicate dual agency situation, when you're working with the buyer, the land trust buyer, and you're working with the land trust seller, and the home inspection calls out these things, then that's where we're trying to all work towards the common good. And when I think about that, like rather than winners and losers, and like, aha, the seller won this one, and the buyer got this one, but more like, okay, the seller needs to sell their home and make some profit on it. The buyer needs to get into an affordable home. The home has to be in good quality with no, serious defects or safety, health concerns. So let's see if we can do that. And usually we can. And so then oftentimes we'll have, we'll say, okay, here's what the home inspection requested. We got some bids from an electrician, a plumber, and our contractor. It's going to cost you $1,800 to do these things that we'll do between now and closing, and you'll pay us for it closing. Yeah, that's reasonable. If it's $18,000, that's when it's like, oh, there's all my equity on it, And then a couple of times where then we've had to step in and think about how we solve it. But most of the time, they're a small enough amount of work that either the buyer will say, yeah, I can tackle that after closing, that's fine, it's not a huge deal, I'm handy, my dad's handy, or no, this is like the safety thing we have to do now, and we're gonna do it. So.
I think as you see in Jim's and I's response, there are pros and cons to each one of these models. Okay, and you can see Jim struggling with some of these, with some of these, because they're issues that are they're right in the middle, so to speak. They skirt the line here. And I'm not trying to push our model, and I'm not trying to denigrate it. But one of the I think advantages of having a separate entity is that role clarification is greater. I don't have to deal with the issues that Jim deals with that are really land trust type issues. You know what I'm saying? I'm really sort of free. If I'm representing a buyer, I'm free to represent that buyer. I don't do so to the detriment of the land trust, but I know what my role is. It's clearer. You know what I'm saying? And when I'm representing a seller, it's the same way. I'm not encumbered, so to speak, by land trust rules and regulations and that sort of stuff. And in terms of representing my client, I can, pursue my client's interest and be the voice of my client, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Again, I don't do that. I don't get into, it's not an adversarial type of relationship, but it's the roles are a little bit more defined. They're a little bit more clearer, so that we can have a give and take and come up with a solution that meets the needs of both without feeling that either one of us have capitulated, so to speak.
Yeah.
Were you a realtor before you joined in this partnership with them?
No, my history is I was in corporate for quite a few years, but I went on my own and got into my own businesses and stuff like that, and then I exited out that. But in terms of how I got into real estate or homeownership, I was a counselor. I was a homeownership counselor, and I also taught the home trust class. So my desire is to be in this space, so to speak, in terms of helping people, acquire property.
Because we use the model that you guys use. So
Okay.
I'm actually the broker for Cooley Community Realty.
Okay.
I see a lot of advantages to your model, and I resonated with a lot of the things you said of like, if I had to do this for my real job and like feed myself, like, I probably would be really bad at it. But, you know, so I see a lot of advantages for it being its own separate entity with you as an independent contractor, as opposed to me being a coolie cap employee that I get paid the same whether or not I sell a house or not.
Right, right. And let me say something about that. Jim's model developed from the experience that, you know, he's had with One Roof. The model that we use, the land trust, developed from that personal experience. I did a lot of counseling for the land trust in terms of their clients. I even did, you know, some home stress classes for them. So I had a relationship with the land trust. I've had a relationship with them for, you know, probably about 15 years. So I knew the organization very well. I did not have a desire to be an employee. I want to be on my own. I want to be able to have the flexibility to be able to earn as much money as I want to earn. And I did not want to be in a situation where I was confined, so to speak. You know, once you're in business for yourself, you always want to be in business for yourself because there's a great deal of freedom and flexibility there. So the land trust model kind of developed along, you know, that thinking, so to speak. So,
Yeah, and it's a good distinction because the Northern Communities Land Trust One Roof approach, for good and for ill, and mostly for good, I think, but we've been wear many hats, do many things, do as much as we can ourselves, grow our capacity so that we can do it instead of somebody else. And it's allowed us to do some pretty awesome things because we've kept more of it in-house, and it's really allowed us to be very, very focused on our mission. And it's created just what Osborne said, is some blurrier lines and some you know, less clarity. Well, whose responsibility is this exactly if we're playing every single role in the transaction, right? So that's why it's great to see, you know, just different ways to go about it.
Just real quick, do both models list in MLS?
Yes.
Yeah?
yes,
So-
Jim, you have a website that's internal to your organization, right?
Yeah, and we list on the MLS.
And you list on the MLS. City of Lakes Community Realty has its own website separate from the land trust, and we list properties on our website. To Jake's question, we use an IDX thing, kind of a link, so to speak. So when the property is listed on the MLS, it's automatically listed on our website along with pictures and all of that. We used to do the manual stuff, but we decided we didn't want to spend the time on that, or I didn't want to spend the time on it because it required some, you know, I had to know how to do website development, and I didn't want to do that. So that's kind of how we do it. So yes, we do list on the MLS.
So then I guess I just have a couple of follow-up questions to that. So when you're listing them on MLS, first question would be what price are you putting on there? Are you putting, so for the resale, that would make sense to put the CLT price, that makes sense. But for like a new construction or a new build that you're putting on there, are you putting the CLT price, or are you putting the market price? What?
Yeah, that's a central one. I'll tell you how we do it, and it'll be interesting to see how you do it. So we do for both the first time we out of the gate and any resales, the MLS price is the land trust program price, so that the reduced price. And sorry if I'm repeating folks from yesterday, but it's an important point that we had a conversation early on with our MLS director to say, hey, here's our program, here's how it works, you know, we're selling these homes significantly below market value. We'd like to list them for the discounted price that the buyer's really paying, and what, in their mind, what they're paying for the home. But our funders require the actual closing disclosure, the purchase agreement to say the full market value, because they want to show what the true transaction was and what. So I said, you know, can we put it on the MLS for land trust reduced price, and then when it closes, put on the MLS what it actually sold for. And they said, we get what you're doing, we support what you're doing, but no, because it'll skew our numbers if it looks like, well, you listed it for 100, you sold it for 150, you know, like, that messes up the MLS. So we've had a 20-year agreement where it'll be listed on the MLS for 100 and it'll say sold for 100, but the closing disclosure, the actual transaction is 150, that's what gets reported to the county auditor, that's what shows in the record books. And so then that, again, the pros and cons, what's very clear about that is that the buyers and the realtors see the price that the buyer's paying and they all go, yeah. And they also will look at it because it's within their price range, whereas if we advertised it at the high number and then put in the notes somewhere, $50,000 in affordability gap available, people are just going to skip over the listing. And the commission is tied to the MLS price, so everybody's clear on that, as opposed to the full market value price, and that's been very clear. The downside is that when appraisers or other realtors want to use our sold MLS listings as comps, they go like, what's with these numbers? They say low. We have to explain that. Don't use them as comps for your market because these aren't market prices. And that's how we structure it. So how do you guys?
Well, we are similar. We have the same issues. When we list a property on the MLS, we list it at the CLT price. But we also have instructions with respect to the property in the supplement section of the MLS where we disclose the market price. So we tell, we instruct realtors who are completing a purchase agreement for their clients that yes, the property is purchased at the market value. When the property is sold, what we do is we will indicate in the remarks section of the listing what we did. In other words, the house was listed at this, the land trust provided this the market price was this, the land trust provided this financial contribution which brought it down. So that when the appraisers go to the old listing, so to speak, to look that up, they can see, why the house was priced as it was.
If they read the remarks.
If they read the remarks, yes. Yes, in terms of the commission, we handle the commission the same way. We do it a little bit sneaky though. Well, I won't say it's sneaky.
Strike that from the record, please.
Usually what realtors will do is they will express the commission as a percent of the list price, and we often get the question, well, is it the commission, is the percentage based on the market value or is it based on the list price? What we do is there is the option in the MLS to, instead of expressing the commission as a percent, you can express it as a whole number, and that's what we do, and that wipes out the uncertainty with respect to the commission.
And we put language in the purchase agreement that says the commission is based on the MLS price of $145,000, so that everybody's very clear on that.
So then coming back to that, just using Minnesota Housing Gap Assistance Funds.
Yeah.
So you could run into a situation where you've already put it lower than what a buyer might need, right? So you might say, hey, we're going to sell this at 150, but actually the subsidy your buyer needed was maybe only 40,000 compared to the 50 you put into it. So how do you make up that?
Yes, and that is a 25-year battle with Minnesota Housing, where their perspective is we just want to use the minimum amount that's needed for this buyer. And our approach is we want to get the maximum amount to have it be as affordable from the start, because remember, Minnesota Housing, that's the starting point for all future resales going forward for the life of this property. And we've had that conversation 10,000 times. And because of course, if the first buyer, let's say the first buyer is at 78% of AMI, and they can't afford more, and then you sell it for higher, well, then that's the starting point in the land trust model for all future resales. Now it's 20 grand higher than it forever. So we've always, and plus it's really, really difficult to market a home with a floating price, you know. Somewhere in this range, just give us a call, you know. So we said, again, we told Mr. Housing, we have to have a number, we have to have we list this home, we have to have a price, right? So we've had some success, and of course their staff changes and comes and goes, but one workaround we've done of late is, and most of the time it hasn't been an issue because we target 60% of AMI buyers most of the time. At our lowest price that we can get it, they're still within the range of what Minnesota housing allows for a housing ratio. But sometimes they're not. And sometimes we've been dinged for that, and they say, you know, this house was too affordable. I was like, oh shoot, I'm sorry, you made it too affordable. That's a terrible, terrible thing. But we won't do that again. No, but what we've recently realized is that they fund value gap and affordability gap. So in developer speak, value gap is the difference between the total development cost of the property to develop the whole thing and what it actually appraises at market value. And then the affordability gap is the appraised market value, and then what you're selling it for to the buyer. So if you use the MHA-based funds for a value gap, then they don't care about the buyer because they're funded for value gap. And then whether the buyer was paying 15% of their income, the initial house doesn't care because their particular funds were only used for value gap. So we've gone that direction where we use their funds for value gap. We use them like home or CDBG or Federal Home Loan Bank or other programs for the affordability gap to kind of avoid that issue entirely. But yeah, we've had many conversations. I remember Jeff in our first office 22 years ago having that same conversation with, you know, and we've had many over the years. And it's like sometimes where like ships crossing, you know, like they're thinking, well, you're selling it at market value, and what does this buyer need then off of market value to buy it? And I said, no, that's not what we're doing. We're selling it through the land trust program at a deep discount to reach this income population. It's not focused on individual buyer. It's focused on permanent affordability for 99 years, right? Good thing that we did is they now prioritize permanent affordability in their funding applications, and a lot of their funding goes to land trust organizations around the state. So they have put their money where their mouth is in that respect, which has been awesome. So yeah.
Is there a separate drop down for CLT on the MLS? Like where you have single family condo?
Yeah.
And then...
There's not. There is. They did add one recently. Is the land lease? And if so, is there a lease fee amount? So that's good because we had to put that in there previously, like, this is a land trust house, they're leasing land, like in the remarks and the notes, but now they've created fields that say, lease land, yes, no, if there's a lease, what's the monthly lease payment? And so then it's in there.
So-
oh, I'm sorry, I have a quick question. Sometimes when it's hard to sell a property, I find myself with one buyer, and we do a lot of dual agency, which is just not the long-term strategy, but it's just the reality of a newer CLT. But I often find myself in the situation where the amount of discount is kind of like goes up and down depending on the buyer demand of the property. Do you guys just fix it and say, you know, on this particular property, it's always going to be a 25% discount, or?
We fix it, and because there's so many other variables that we're constantly dealing with, like I need a fixed price to like for continuity and sanity and all. So this is the price of this home regardless of the buyers. That being said, resales, in particular, that we talked about this yesterday, purchase option price and whatever add-ons, we say this is the maximum price that you land trust seller can sell your home for. You may not find a buyer for that price. You might have to lower it. That rarely has happened with us. In our market, they've almost always been able to sell it for the official purchase option price that the resale formula produces. But I think in other areas, with higher values, higher appreciation, there might, I think other land trusts have run into some issues where the resale formula price puts out a number that's too high for the current buyers to be able to reach. But we haven't really dealt with that. Yeah.
So what are the other essential pieces of an MLS listing that you feel any CLT property needs to have on them to both communicate to the buyer and like any agents that are engaging with that?
So there's this wonderful section that's just called agent remarks, and then there's one that's public remarks. And I used to put different things, and now I just put the same thing pretty much in both of them because I realized that they don't often, the agents don't always read the agent remarks section or whatever, so I always put right out of the gate, here's the market value of this home. The appraised market value is $175,000. This home is being sold $50,000 below market value to income qualified buyers through the Community Land Trust program. Just spell it right out. And these are the income limits that the buyer needs to meet. A household of one, $38,500. A household of two, $43,600. So, like it's just black and white as possible. And that has reduced the number of times dramatically where, somebody would show a home and then I wasted my time. I didn't know there were income limits, and it's like, well, it did say it, but now I'm going to actually put the numbers in there, and then we just put it in multiple places. Otherwise, the rest of it is all of the standard, like really good photos, and the pictures. They say pictures are worth 1,000 words, so that's the first thing people look at is what does it look like. If the photos are bad, it does have an effect. So what have you found to be?
We do something similar in the remarks section. I explain, we put asterisks and we say this is a land trust property. Okay, special, requirements. Buyer has to meet special criteria. They have to be income qualified. They have to use certain lenders. They have to attend an orientation. We put the big three in the remarks section, and then in the public remarks, I tend not to describe, the property in the agent remarks, but I do describe the property in the public remarks, and we identify that the property is a land trust property. We've been stung quite a few times. We don't list the City of Lakes Community Land Trust as the owner because we get turned in sometimes by the MLS police. They don't like that, so I don't like getting fined. I've been fined a couple of times. I've never had to pay one, but there are MLS rules that, with respect to what you can put in the agent remarks and what you can put in the public remarks and those kinds of things. So I tend to stick to the identification of the fact that it's community land trust property, and there are requirements that need to be met. And in the public section, we'll describe the property and say something similar.
And just build up. We do the exact same thing, and in the agent remarks, we add another piece because we have this. The way we do it is we have a 7-day listing period once a property is listed for applicants to get their applications in, get the mortgage pre-approvals, their income verification, all those things. So we say in the agent remarks, these are the steps your client has to take to get approved, and They need to have all these steps completed by Tuesday, January 25th at 5 PM in order to be considered for the property. You do not, I mean, put it in, you do not need to submit offers prior to that date. You only need to submit an offer if your buyer is selected. And even though we do that, we'll still get an agent like, okay, my buyer loves it, I'm putting an offer tomorrow. I'm like, you don't have to do that, because don't put an offer in unless your buyer is selectable. It will save you the trouble, is you don't have to go to all that effort, so, yeah.
We do that
So
too.
you do the same, yeah, okay.
In addition to what you do on the MLS, are there any other marketing strategies that you found successful, especially for moving those homes that just seem to sit
Just
there?
yeah. We used to do open houses a lot, and they're just so darn time consuming, and who wants to give up a Sunday and a beautiful fall day in Duluth and sit for 2 hours in a house? We never got a lot of sales through that. I don't know if you had much on going through for open houses.
Well, we, you know, as Jim indicated, most of community land trust properties sell because of the price point and the condition that they're in. But we do, every now and then, we have a property that won't move, okay? And lately, I don't know what the market is in Duluth, but the market in Minneapolis is changing. It's becoming a little bit more of a buyer's market. You know, buyers have a little bit more power now because there are a few of them in the market. Interest rates have gone up, you know, kind of that's what's caused that. And sellers are panicking. Their properties are staying on the market longer. And so they want them sold, so there's a little bit, anyway.
Yeah, one,
Yeah.
I would say one tried and true thing that's just very basic, but is translating, you know, most buyers understandably, what does $150,000 sale price mean to me? I don't really know, but you say, your monthly house payment will be $628, and this includes your principal, your interest, your property taxes, your homeowner's insurance, and your land lease fee, you know, based on, you know, current market interest rates. And they're like, oh, you know, $628? Yeah, I can totally do that. So we try to include that information as well, so it immediately lets them know whether this is in my. And then we also say you only need $1,000 of your own money as a down payment. Because of course that's the other big barrier. People think, I don't have 20 grand to put down. So if they can see like, I only need $1,000 down, it's $650 a month, this is very doable, you know. And that is, it's good to do all the time, but particularly on those difficult to sell ones where you really need a little extra work to clarify that. Yeah.
I sort of lost track of the question. One of the things that we are in the process of implementing, and Sydney and David are here to kind of help us, we're going to do the social marketing. I mean, we're going to do the Instagram, we're going to do the Facebook posts, we're going to do the TikTok videos and all of that sort of thing, because, as you know, what we're trying to do is not so much necessarily sell properties, although we're trying to do that. We're also trying to pinpoint the buyers that, you know, need the properties or can qualify for the properties. And it's really kind of difficult just to do that in terms of, you know, extolling the benefits of a land trust property. We kind of leave that up. The real estate company is going to leave that up to the land trust to do that. So, but we're going to take more of a traditional focus in terms of, you know, marketing these properties and soliciting buyers based on some of the social media stuff. I don't think a lot of land trusts, community land trusts do that, but we're going to try to do it simply because I have an interest in doing it, and I just want to, you know, I don't want properties to stay on the market for a long time. It's not good. So we're gonna try that. And these two, they're coaching me. Okay. So look for me on TikTok.
Do not look for me on TikTok. I am a complete non-social media person, and fortunately we haven't needed to do that. And if we did, I would, you know, we do have other staff who have those capabilities for our overall land, one roof marketing of our organization and events activities. We haven't needed to go there for our selling of our homes, but if, I could see a point where we'd say, help, Tina, can you get the word out, however you do that magically about this property, because our normal ways aren't working.
Just another take on that. One thing that we've done through some of our partnerships that we have, large employers and the like, we've actually been able to put a house like within one of our major employers and say, hey, we have a land trust home for sale, which again, this major employer targets exactly the demographic that we're looking for, the community we're trying to serve. So, and they've helped spread that word through their company for us as well. So, you know, the company saw it as a benefit that, hey, we're trying to help our employees find a home and make roots and stay with the company kind of thing. So that's worked for us. We're also like nonprofit organizations that work with whatever income level you're looking to work with. CAP LPs CAP organizations or others. It's just you to put a flyer up in there or send it out to them. But
yeah, I'd say networking is cool. We just got a call on a house. I'm in a networking group with United Way, and one of the school social workers called us. They have a family looking for housing, so yeah, just those kind of connections.
Yeah. See how we are on time here. Oh, we're done. All right. Any last, like, want to get this last thing out there before we? All right.
Can I add
Yep.
one other thing?
Bring us home, Aaron.
You know, you've seen one model, you've seen another model. You don't necessarily have to go either one of these models. There are things that you can do with your real estate partners to educate them about land trust property so that you can have a closer connection to them. So you can get the same benefits that we get from these entities. We just did it because we wanted a few more things thrown into that. But the whole thing, the whole goal is to be able to rationalize, so to speak, or integrate the activities of your real estate partners with the land trust, you know, needs, so that you can